Good afternoon. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's just what you can't see is there's my monitor is just on the left here. I don't know if this is working. Is that working? Yeah. You see on the other side there of the microphone, there's the microphone, is the monitor, and I can see myself. I just caught myself at the beginning of the stream yawning because I was up at 5 o'clock. It just suddenly made me laugh. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. Because that's not how I wanted the stream to start. Welcome to the Bald Explorer stream live. And it's, well, I don't know what day it is. The day it's every day's going so quickly. It's 28th of May, 2020. We're reading again. I Saw Two Englands by H.V. Morton. And we've got the lovely Julia out there. Hello, Julia. And we've got Turbo Stream, Adrian. Hello, Adrian. We've also got Audrey Forbes, who's there. Good afternoon. Fallen off a stepladder whilst cutting the hedge. Oh, my God. Feel bruised and shocked. I hope you are all right and don't need to go to A&E with a broken leg. That would be rather grand. I might be a bit unshaven on the camera. I do apologise for that. Ed Loud, good afternoon afters. Heidi Hi, says Holly and Co. Wishing everyone well. Thank you very much. Linda Kane, good afternoon, folks. Mike Stevens, hello. Graham Roffey, good to see you. Good to see the old clan out there on such a lovely day when, you know, it'd be nice to be sitting outside, actually. But I've been out filming and I've come back and I'm editing and not quite finished with the edit. So this is one of the reasons why there isn't a Vogue show now, because when I finish this, it'll be 5 and I'll go and light the SE and think about dinner. And then I'll nip back in there and try and finish the edit so that there's a video for tomorrow. It'll all be done. I woke at 5:15 too. Was up at the Waisley Hills by 8 a.m. on my bike. Fantastic. Well done, sir. You should stream outside, Richard. It's lovely outside. Yes, if I had a garden, if I had a nice garden to stream outside, I can't stream out the front. And my back garden is a bit full of logs, really. It would be lovely. But that, I mean, I put a jumper on again, as you can see, because it's a little bit cooler, funnily enough. Mark Dolly McLeod, hello to you. Praying you're well. Yes, we're praying you're well, Audrey. Anyway, and I might sniffle a bit because I seem to have got a bit bunged up with hay fever and I've been sneezing and all the usual. Don't know why, but must be something to do with the weather. I have a message here. What's this on my desk? Oh, baked bread for Linda Kane. I've got to make some bread for Linda Kane. And you're out there, aren't you, Linda? I need to get some more bread flour because I've only got wholemeal and I've run out of all the other. But I'm not quite sure when my next trip to Morrison's is, but when it is, I will do it. Mark says, I too have been up at silly AM and got too hot. Then the pollen got a bit... Oh, the pollen got a bit high for me, so I had to retreat. Yeah, it's a bit like that at the moment, isn't it? Right, well, we left him with Bunyan, John Bunyan, didn't we? And we've sorted him out with Bunyan, so let's carry on and see where it takes us. As I travelled north from Bedford to Huntingdonshire and the northwest to Northamptonshire, I thought how large a part of England is still happily unknown to the advertiser. Some day the whole problem of private profit and what crimes against good taste a man may commit in the search of it will have to be faced, but how, I do not know. Well-meaning societies do not even begin to tackle the problem. Perhaps the Ministry of Taste might be able to do good by educating the public and formulating laws limiting the amount of harm a financier and a spectator may inflict. But until ordinary men and women recognise offensive, the ghastly little foreign cinemas standing so ostentatiously in main streets of English market towns, until they learn to hate the numerous shoddy deformities of speculative building and the countless crimes against the local architectural traditions everywhere committed, even by the Ministry of Health and Post Office, we shall never get very far. I love the fact he says here, but until ordinary men and women recognise as offensive the ghastly little foreign cinemas. The ghastly little foreign cinemas. Isn't there a name for those now? And it's a sort of arty name, isn't it? Not noir. Bête noir? No. What is it? There's a name for the little foreign cinemas. Of course, it's all sort of like trendy, isn't it? I can't think what they call them. Anyway, doesn't matter. Northamptonshire is a wonderful Midland county. Like many of the agricultural shires, it is more in the 19th century than the 20th. Its market towns are, generally speaking, unwoolworthed and despensed. Yeah, well, they're unwoolworthed and very soon probably will be despensed if they go down, Marks and Spencer, if they go down the plug hole soon. You never encounter it in its lanes the man on a tricycle peddling ice cream, whose presence in the south these days is a sign of a frequent thoroughfare. There are no roadhouses, and the countryside is entirely free from advertisements. The lanes of Northamptonshire, with wide grass verges on each side, the sheep grazing in the meadows, the spires of distant churches rising above woodland, the grey stone farms and the little Tudor manor cottages standing among old trees, form an unforgettable picture of an unspoilt England. Oh, film noir. Oh, yeah, film noir. Is that it? There's one in... There's one in Brighton, isn't there, that just shows foreign films. But I'm sure it might be film noir, is it? Or it's, there's another, what is it? Yeah, quiet. Is that Mr. Suggett getting in touch with me again? Mr. Suggett, are you ringing? Yeah, no, that's interesting. Unspoilt. I bet Northamptonshire is just as spoilt now as the rest of the blooming places. I've said something about the villages of Oxfordshire and their stone houses and stone roofs. In Northamptonshire you have the same type of village, only much of the stone is darker. The most characteristic sight in Northamptonshire village is the row of sturdy old fortress-like cottages. Their roofs are mossy stone, undulating in the prettiest way as the old rafters have bent under the weight. Of all the roofing stone I have seen since I entered the limestone country, I think the Collie Western slates are the most beautiful to look at. This is a stone which was quarried in the old days, and may even be quarried today, for all I know, in the north of the county, near the Rutland border. I've been told that the stone is taken from quarries in huge slabs and then exposed to the action of frost. It is even watered on winter nights to give the frost a greater hold of it. When this has happened, a single tap from a hammer will split the stone into thin, uniform layers, admirably adapted for roofing purposes. I notice that the stone roofs of Northamptonshire are cemented on the outside, not on the inside, as you see them in Gloucestershire. Art house. Yeah, maybe that's it. Art house. Is it art house cinema? There we go. Audrey says, I'm lying on the bed. Oh, poor Audrey. So, who feels sorry for you? Must have been a bit of a shock. I hope you weren't too high up the ladder. Mark says, I was thinking of doing that a while back. Stop me and buy one, dressed up in Edwardian style in Harrogate. Well, yeah, why not? But I love the way he describes peddling their wares. It's interesting, isn't it? The one in Brighton is called the Continental. I was too innocent to go there. Yeah. What ho, Vobsters, says Andrew Norris. Hello, Andrew. Lovely to see you. Northamptonshire was the scene of one of the most tragic execution in English history. The death at Fotheringhay Castle of Mary, Queen of Scots. The village of Fotheringay lies about 10 miles to the southwest of Peterborough, and as I approached it by the way of Oundle, a dark, scholastic town of almost black stone. What happened as I approached? Oh, and I approached. Not as I approached, and I approached. In a few miles I came to the broad, flat meadows traversed by the Nene, a slow and placid stream running its course through the country that reminded me strongly of Warwickshire. There was a grey stone bridge, and in open fields on the riverbank a huge perpendicular church with flying buttresses and a tower from which rose a graceful octagonal lantern. I crossed the bridge and found myself in an avenue of horse-chestnut trees. The village street was wide, empty and silent. A few stone houses stood dotted along its length. There were no shops and only one inn, the Falcon, and an old farmhouse turned into a hotel. The door was opened by a man in a white mess jacket who greeted me in a Scottish voice. "Hi, new," he said. He didn't. Heavens, man, have you been here since the execution? Oh, no, that's the wrong one. This is the narrator. Heavens, man, have you been here since the execution? I asked. "Och, no, I'm no sae antique as that." What? If you wrote it in English, I could do the voice, and now you've written it in Scottish, I haven't a clue what you're saying. "Och, no, I no sae antique as that." Okay. It's a strange thing to come across Fotheringhay and hear a Scots voice at the moment one arrives. Maybe. I've heard that before," he replied, taking my bag and leading the way upstairs. My first impression of Fotheringhay was one of ineffable peace and quiet. Sorry, I'm reading absolutely crap again tonight. I've got no gauge of time and place. And also, I've got so many reflections. I wish they wouldn't print these bloody books. It's a nice book, but on glossy paper. I don't want it on glossy paper. What is the point of putting it on glossy paper when then, the sheen comes over your eyes and you can't read the sodding thing? What is the point? Please. Either new, Jimmy. My first impression of Fotheringhay was one of ineffable peace and quiet. No sound louder than a horse was going past the road, or a dog barking undisturbed in a small retired village. Sensitive people have felt that Fotheringhay has never recovered from the shocking deed done there 3.5 centuries ago, and I can well believe that on a wet day when the chestnut trees are dripping and the gaunt stone cottages blackened with rain, a note of deepest melancholy would be struck. But on that bright evening, with gnats dancing in the late sunlight, the chestnuts and the hawthorn in bloom, the river singing slowly on its way, I thought Fotheringhay was perfect. A few elderly people who appreciate peace and who can afford to pay for it were staying in the hotel, and among them was a retired clergyman who had studied the antiquities of Northamptonshire. He told me that nothing is left of the castle but a high mound at the end of the village on the riverbank, and we walked out to see it after dinner. "Only one story from the execution has come down to the present inhabitants of Fotheringhay," he said, in a voice which I probably used many times before, "which you may think strange, for less important and less terrible events are remembered in some villages. There is a reason for this. When the castle was pulled down in the 17th century, the old families departed and the life of Fotheringay declined. Even the farm labourers were a new race of incomers. So, you see, Fotheringhay, it's Fotheringhay. I keep saying Fotheringay, it's Fotheringhay. What am I talking about? Fotheringhay, he said, which you might think... in the life of Fotheringhay declined. Even the farm labourers were a new race of incomers, you see. So Fotheringhay has parted completely from the past. We came to the site of the castle, which is now part of a farm. A huge mound covered with grass and hawthorn trees perhaps marks the place of the central keep. I have often heard the story, said my companion, that when James I came to the throne, he put a curse on Fotheringhay and pulled down the scene of his mother's death. But that's not true. Fotheringhay Castle was standing, probably uninhabited, throughout James's reign, but was pulled down about 1626, the year after his death, by the owner, who would not spend money on its restoration. Hawthorn trees, red and white, now bloom on the site of the banqueting hall, where the execution took place. Enormous quantities of milk thistles grow everywhere, and these, which are said to grow all around Mary's prisons, gave Agnes Strickland, the historian, the odd idea that the Queen and her attendants went from prison to prison sowing seeds of the emblem of Scotland. The only remaining masonry is a huge block of rubble which has fallen down and rolled near the river. An archaeological society has surrounded it with iron railings decorated with the Scots thistle. We sat on the mound smoking our pipes, puff, 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 to keep the gnats at bay, and talking of the execution. For nearly 6 months, Mary Stuart looked out of the view which one sees today on the top of this mound, the river winding its way through the flat meadows. A peaceful scene, but one which Mary observed from October to February during the dreariest time of the year, a time when rain blots out the distance and grey clouds mass in a wild sky. I knew no account of the death more vivid and more affecting than the report of the execution which Sir Robert Wingfield wrote to Elizabeth's secretary, Lord Burleigh. Elizabeth must have read this calm and observant account of the horrible scene, and no doubt it played part in her futile and undignified attempt to disclaim responsibility. The Queen of Scots met her fate with courage and faith. She spent the evening before her death tying up gifts for her servants in little purses, in writing letters of farewell, in having a camisole of thin tartan made without a neck, so that when she was disrobed at the block, she would not appear unclothed before so many spectators. But the most poignant moment was one of which little has been written. Indeed, I have read accounts of her death in which it is never even mentioned. The Pope, foreseeing or having been told that she might be refused the ministration of the Catholic priest, sent her a consecrated wafer, and with it dispensation never before given to a member of the laity, the right to administer the Eucharist to herself. I am the Pope, and with this little nice wafer you can have a wool's ice cream. It's nice to put the cream between the two wafers, and then you can wash it under your arm with the Eucharist. It's very nice. I don't know what really all of that means, but there we are. Let's just have a quick look at some of these. I used to hate printing on gloss paper. Silk was much nicer. Yes, gloss paper's horrible. Slippery as well. My pet peeve is now how the tiniest font on the most important documents. I should think that should be stopped by law. Well, I think that should. The wasn't there a body called the Society of the Common English or something, or Making English Sensible? They do it on purpose so you can't read it. Small print, that's right. Yeah, good. Okay. Where were we? Oh, yeah, with the Pope and his little bit of wafer. Yes, my wafer. The moment when, only a few hours before to live, she went apart and gave herself the sacrament is surely the most beautiful and almost the most tragic of her sad life. In the morning, when she stood on the draped scaffold, clothed in a scarlet petticoat and her tartan bodice, the handkerchief which her weeping women bound about her eyes contained in it a Corpus Christi cloth, probably the cloth in which the wafer had been wrapped. If there is a place in England where it is not difficult to hate Elizabeth and her ministers, it is the mound of Fotheringhay. Even if it be granted that Mary's presence was a danger to the throne and the church, the rude, unfeeling manner and the levity of those who conducted her mock trial, and the brutality of those who struck off her head and allowed her body to lie in a room at Fotheringhay for 6 months before it was buried at Peterborough, are a foul blot on humanity. I don't really know much about Mary, Queen of Scots. I always thought that Mary Squeen of Cock. Oh no, Mary. Mary, Queen of Scots. I always thought that she was a baddie. That's what I was led to believe, that she was plotted against Elizabeth and was trying to get her, so that the Catholics could get back in again. That's what I thought. Mary, Queen of Cox. Anyway, clearly, I must be mistaken. We walked back to the village and entered the fine church where two Plantagenet dukes lie near the altar. Edward, Duke of York, who commanded the right wing at Agincourt and died in battle, and Richard, Duke of York, the father of King Edward IV, who was slain at Wakefield. The wind vane of the church is a falcon within a fetterlock, an ancient and unusual sign, the badge of the House of York. A fetterlock in falconry was a circle of metal with a perch inside it so that the bird appears to be standing within a small hoop. When the Yorkists gained the throne, it is said that the bird was shown free and the lock open. The only fetterlock I can think of in common use today is the D-shaped metal clasp used with a padlock for securing a canvas kit bag. Important things have happened at Fotheringhay, I said, pointing to the Yorkist tombs, but everything before and after Mary's execution seems to have been forgotten. That is perfectly true, replied the clergyman. Fotheringhay means only one thing, the execution of Queen of Scots. Yet the place played an important part in the rearing of the House of York. Did you know that Richard Crookback was born at the castle? And one of the few people who seemed to love the place was Catherine of Aragon, on whom it was settled by Henry VIII. She spent great sums of money on it. As we walked from the church, I noticed a handwritten poster on the wall. It was headed, "Proceedings adopted of proclamation of a state war." Oh, yes, sorry. This is important. As we walked from the church, I noticed a handwritten poster on a wall. It was headed, Proceedings adopted on proclamation of a state of war.
The church bells will not be rung or chimed during the whole period of the state of war for any ordinary or special services. The only bell to be used for such an occasion will be the small 5-minute bell. In the event of an enemy air raid threatening the village, the alarm will be sounded by 2 or more of the church bells, ringing continuously for 2 or more minutes. When the alarm has been sounded, when the alarm has been sounded, don't wander about the roads in the village, hinder by trying to help the ARP personnel in the performance of their duties, collect in groups in the field, leave your gas mask behind, don't walk into a gas-contaminated area and get downwind of the gas bomb, or go and look for a crater. Don't step purposefully onto any splash on the ground that may be gas. Don't rush to a spot at the sound of a bomb dropping to see what the damage is or see what it looks like. And don't be surprised at anything that may happen. Here the notice ended, and I stood back in admiration. It was the first notice of the kind I had seen in an English village. Fotheringhay, I reflected, had no faith in appeasement, and this village of 140-odd people might be right. But I hope not. How impossible, how fantastic beyond words. The notice was in that quiet... How impossible, how fantastic beyond words. The notice was in that quiet, lovely place. I've forgotten to ask you something, I said to the clergyman. You told me the story of the execution of Mary... You told me that a story of the execution of Mary Stuart still lives in Fotheringay. What is it? He paused for a moment before a fine stone farmhouse which used to be the New Inn. The central archway, which opened into a galleried courtyard, still remains, and above the arch are 2 fine Gothic windows. Yes. Well, the story is, said my companion, that the executioner, who arrived at Fotheringhay 3 days before the execution, clothed in black from head to foot, slept in a little room above the arch of the inn. That's the only story which has come down, and when you think of it, it's highly probable that the presence of that sinister person in a little English town would leave an impression that has survived even a change of population. The farmer willingly took us over the old house and into the executioner's room in the archway. The house is now a mass of Georgian timber and plaster on a Gothic shell, but it is possible to trace in the farm buildings the old galleries that once ran round the inn courtyard. Sorry, I can't read today. Ben Reeve says, I love that at Sellafield there are 8 different alarms sounds for different levels of brown underpants moments. Imagine the trouble thinking it is just a fire, or is it a critical alarm? Oh yeah, that's true. Mark says many houses in this immediate vicinity of grandeur have priest holes going back to Mary's day. Townley Park House in Burnley is riddled with them, as Samleybury Hall near Preston. Prieststown. Oh, Preston, Prieststown. Very good. Graham Chase says, who's missing ringing of church bells in this present pandemic? Oh, yeah. We're not getting those Sunday bells ringing. Sorry I'm late. This is English Andy. No problem at all, English Andy. Nice to see you there. Morton Lewis says to Mark, there are fine priest holes at Baddesley, Clinton, in my native Warwickshire. Sorry for the typo. Dyslexic fingers. Don't worry. I'm reading it out in a very dyslexic way anyway. Interesting. Could it be the original of How's He Fetlin? Don't know. What is a lovely
Nearly made a bit of a boo-boo, says that lovely Julia. Oh, yes. The wafer is believed in Catholic Church to be the body of the Christ. Is that because he's wafer thin or you can see through him? Ooh, Richard. Ooh, Mary, Queen of Scots. Yes. Anyway. Right, so we got to that. In the morning, I went to look at the church again and met there a fellow guest from the hotel, a professor of history. Isn't it so convenient that he meets all these... I mean, I imagine if it was me going round, and I would go... And next morning, I went to the church and I met there a dog walker who dumped their poo on the pavement, gathered it up in a plastic bag and left the bag on top of a tombstone. I went to go and say something to him, but he had a bit of a red face and I thought he's going to punch me in a gizzard, so I left it. That's probably what would have happened to me. Anyway, he happens to find a professor of history. I remarked that the news from Danzig was not too good this morning. I know nothing about it, replied the historian. I gave up reading the papers last September and feel better for it in every way. This bloody coronavirus is everywhere. Turn on Radio 4, they won't stop talking about it. Now they're talking about Dominic Cummings every 2 minutes. I don't know what's going on. But surely, I said, you glance at the headlines. No, I refuse to do that. I like to base my opinions on facts. I read them off the tombstones. It would. And there are not sufficient facts available these days on which anyone could base an opinion. Therefore, I feel I've missed nothing. It's going to rain again. Do you think? Is it going to rain again, do you think? We talked about the weather, as everybody does in England, and about Mary, Queen of Scots, and as everybody does at Fotheringhay. I suggested it was not easy to understand the callous cruelty of the Elizabethans who murdered Mary, Queen of Scots. Now, there I don't agree with you, he said. I might have done so in 1914, but not today. You, as a reader of newspapers, must be aware of the decline in moral values that's taken place in our time. The world has swung back into the immoral atmosphere of, shall we say, the Tudor times. The reign of Hitler has taught me a lot about the reign of Elizabeth. It's made the men and the actions of that time incredibly credible and understandable. Our world has just emerged from a long and unusual period of law and order, and, as always in times of danger, politicians have become unscrupulous, just as they were in Tudor times. Well, that could well be the case today. He paused to light his pipe. Everybody smokes pipes back in the 1930s. Everybody... Oh, yes, we're smoking our pipes. Puff, puff, puff. Bit of mouth cancer is coming my way. Puff, puff, puff. I'd love to smoke a pipe. I'd love to, on the Bald Explorer, I'd love to stop at certain important points. And as if, you're looking there at the relic of an old building and get out a pipe. Get out your little leather pouch. Get out your little bit of shag. Shove it in there like this. Get your tamper out. Tamp it down. Get a match. Swan vest and... that one's not doing... Get it going. Puff. Big puff of smoke like that. Couple of nice angles from here and there. Big puff of smoke. Puff, puff, puff like that. And then lean through the smoke as it's clearing like this and just... come out with one very poignant remark and then leaving the smoke swirling, and you go away. That would be perfect for me. That would be how the Bald Explorer... I might have to do that in one episode of the Bald Explorer. I think that would be hilarious. Puff, puff, puff. And then up comes a, health warning. Smoking kills! Puff, puff, puff. Anyway... He paused for a moment to light his pipe and went on, danger produces fear, and fear produces unscrupulousness. He's talking a lot of sense here. Danger and uncertainty are two of the constant factors in human affairs. If you doubt that we're back in the mentality of the Tudor age, study the social background. The money power was paramount, and the state was chained to it as it is today.
The Elizabethan state, enriched by church lands, was financing commerce just as we are today. Money and fear of Catholic Spain are the two great factors in Elizabethan politics. Money and the fear of Nazi Germany are the great factors in England today. Money and the fear of coronavirus is probably likely to be the same thing again. The execution of Mary Stuart was merely a swift and successful political move carried out by men very like modern politicians. Indeed, before I gave up reading the papers, I seem to remember that similar death sentences had been executed from precisely similar motives in modern Europe. It's true that the common people are shocked by them, probably because the common people of Europe are not yet as unscrupulous as their leaders. They're still living in an old-fashioned atmosphere of a more moral world, but their leaders are not, and history proves, if it proves anything at all, that a leader need not necessarily lead forward. He can just as easily lead backward. The only hope for the world, as I see it, is that the people of the world may remain sufficiently old-fashioned to refuse to be led backward. But who can tell? Rain began to fall, and we walked back in silence to the hotel, puffing at our pipes. Puff, 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 puffing at my pipe. Puff, 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 puffing at my pipe. My pipe. I love... hang on. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty here. Holly and Co, thank you, Richard. Brilliant reading. Good time had by all, but must dash to work. Okay, Holly and Co. Jack Hargreaves. Oh, yes, he had a pipe. Back in the day, pipe smoking was seen as the sign of a thinking man, as opposed to smoking cork-tipped cigarettes like the French. It's true. My late dad used to smike a pope. Smike a pope? My late dad used to smike a pope. Oh dear, did he? What a great thing to do. My late dad used to smoke a pipe. He spent more time relighting it. Relight my pipe. How does that song, Relight My Fire? It's my biggest desire. Anyway, that's why I packed it in. To go with the train chuffings that I'm doing the spoonerisms today. I can't help myself. History repeating itself over and over again, says Andrew Norris. Yes, bloody is. I'm sure I've seen a photo of young Vobes with hair and a pipe clamped in his teeth. Yes, I made a Super 8 film when I was 15, I think, 14, 15, called Him and His Pipe. That was what it was called. He was, in the story, the version of me was a pipe-smoking treasure hunter. He used to look for treasure, not with a metal detector, but he would go hunting in the streams for old bottles and things like that. That was his thing. And then he got beaten up by these dudes. Smike a Pope sounds like a Pokemon. Yes, that's true. Oh, dear, oh, dear. Sorry about that. How are we doing on the old Timex? So we still got time. Can we finish this sodding chapter? Oh, God. Oh, it's quite a way. It's quite a way. It's quite a way. Sorry, puggy old eye. Let's have a slurp of juice. When I was passing through Undle, I stopped at the Talbot Inn to see the staircase, which is claimed to be the main staircase of Fotheringhay Castle. It's a massive oak structure of a typical Tudor style, and it stands in the light of a long Tudor window. The inn was... every time I've got to try and put a voice to these characters, and I never know whether it's the narrator talking or a character, because he doesn't give me any pre-warning. The inn was rebuilt about 1626, said the proprietor, or just about the time that Fotheringhay Castle was being pulled down. It said that our staircase came from the great chamber, in which the scaffold was erected. Our fine window is also believed to have come from the banqueting hall. If this story is true, and there is no reason to doubt it, the guests of the Talbot go up to bed each night on the stairs by which Mary Stuart descended to her death. I asked the innkeeper if he knew of any other relics of Fotheringhay. He told me to go to Connington, about 12 miles away, where there was a chair which Mary sat on the scaffold and is preserved in the church. Gosh, it's very macabre, isn't it? I set off across the country, travelling due east along the delightful Northamptonshire lanes, meeting nothing but a farm cart here and there. Among English counties, Northamptonshire has one peculiarity. Its borders are touched by those 9 other counties, a larger number of bordering shires than any other county can claim. This means that you cannot travel far in Northamptonshire, especially in the northern part where the county narrows to a few miles, without crossing the boundary. I was soon in Huntingdonshire with the Great North Road in front of me, and crossing that murderous highway, I found Connington, about a mile on the other side of it. There was a church standing beside a manor house, Connington Castle, and the moment I entered the church, I thought how puzzling it must be to its visitors. It contains 2 entirely improbable tombs, those of David I, King of Scotland, and his son, Prince Henry. What on earth is David I of Scotland, who died in 1153, doing in an Elizabethan tomb in Huntingdonshire? The answer has to be sought in the life of the man whose tomb is also in the church, that extraordinary character, Sir Robert Bruce Cotton. He was a book collector and an antiquary, and the founder of the famous Cottonan collection of books and manuscripts now in the British Museum. Cotton, who was born in 1591, was lord of the manor of Connington, and it was the boast of his life that he had royal blood in his Oh, will you read it properly, Mr. Vobes? And it was the boast of his life that he had the royal blood of Scotland in his veins. This was true. One of his ancestors married Bruce's great-granddaughter, Mary de Wessenham, who seems to have been generous with the blood royal, because after the death of her first husband, she married another, after him a third. And after him a third. And should you go in search of her, you'll find in St. Margaret's, Westminster. Oh, for Christ's sake. And if you go in search of her, you'll find her in St. Margaret's, you'll find her in St. Margaret's, Westminster. Thank you. Beside her first husband. Cotton was the prouder of his relation. I can't bloody read today. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I'm just having a mental fit. Cotton was prouder of his relationship with her than of anything else. It said that James and I, it said that James was well aware of this weakness and used to flatter Cotton by telling him cousin whenever he met him calling him. I cannot read. It's driving me mad. Cotton was prouder of his relationship with her than of anything else. It is said that James I was well aware of this weakness and used to flatter Cotton by calling him cousin when he met him in London. In his love for the royal family of Scotland, Cotton erected 2 huge architectural memorials in the church, making them look like tombs, although the persons commemorated were, of course, never buried. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I thought he said he was Robert the Bruce, but this is Sir Robert Bruce Cotton. It was to this antiquarian zeal that we owe the preservation what is now to believe. Oh, he's finally got onto this sodding chair, which he's gone to see. It was to his antiquarian. It was to his antiquarian zeal that we owe the preservation of what is believed to be Mary Stuart's chair, now in Conington Church. The antiquity of a youth of 16 when Mary was executed. Take the evening off. I haven't taken. I'm not doing a Vogue show tonight anyway. The man won the case but sued after. What are you on about? Oh, there was a clip on YouTube where a man sued a cigar company after he said his cigars were lost in a small series of fire. The cigar company was silly enough to say that they would insure again fire. In the policy, the man won the case, but was sued after for 25 cases of arson. I've never smoked, thank goodness. Why? Why did he have the hair clamped in his teeth with the pipe? What are you on about? I can't read today. I cannot read. It's driving me mad, and I'm going to have to stop. I'm going to do this bit again because I have no idea what I'm reading, and the words are jumping. Occasionally this happens, and I thought I got over this. I thought I got over it, but obviously not. So I apologise, ladies and gentlemen, for a crappy performance here by the Vobes. You can ask for your money back, but you won't get it. But you can ask. You can definitely ask. I know, but take it off anyway. I've got to go back to my edit now. I'm going to light the fire and the what's name. I just can't do it. I can't do it. Can't do it today. But don't worry. It's just one of those things. It's one of those things. Some days it works, and other days most days it works. But I'm spoonerisming. I'm adding words in that's not there. The brain is just not geared up for it today. So it's probably because I've been up since 5 for a couple of days running, and the brain is telling me, you're an idiot. So that's it. Is the sunshine sending you mad? Yes, probably. Never mind, Richard. It was still enjoyable. Well, it's always fun watching some poor sod desperately trying to read words. You'd think, learnt this skill when I was at primary school. I must go back there and finish learning that skill. Anyway, all good fun. Hopefully, I've got to go and do some voiceovers in a minute for tomorrow's video. Mark Donny McLeod, no problem, Richard. I understand. If you have hay fever, it could be the eyes. Yes, that's true. We enjoyed it. Yes, thank you very much. Back to the edit, Richard. Don't worry. The flaws of character to your reading, I enjoy them for one. It's amusing us anyway. The sun's got you. Do you need a bonnet? Oh, please, no. Please don't. So many people say, oh, you need a hat. You need a hat. I don't. I don't want a hat. And the bald explorer doesn't have a hat. It's all good fun, isn't it? It's all good fun. Oh, dear. Bye, everyone, says TurboStream. Right, I'm going to make myself a nice drink. I'm going to light the SE. I'm going to calm myself down. And then I shall go and record my voiceovers and sort out my edit, and that'll be good. And then I'll be back. And then tomorrow, we will try it again tomorrow. Anyway, have a nice afternoon. Thank you so much for tuning in, even if I've now made a complete arse of myself. And sun cream, yeah, that's it. You're an entertainer, and you're very much entertainers. Thank you very much. All right. Well, I struggled.
I'll catch up with you tomorrow. I'm sure it'll be better then. We'll have more fun then. Okie dokie. Bye for now. Bye-bye.